please, Stephen.
Alan, thank you very much for inviting me to talk. It is an honour. The last time I was in Ireland was giving a talk on this sort of subject in Stillorgan to a nunnery outfit, Our Lady of Stillorgan or something like that. Nice to be back. So I want to talk about whether behavioural approaches have a role in behaviour problems, because it's quite a fashion not to use them now. I've been told that I'm just treating children like pigeons and various other things. I've been told I'm a randomista because I believe in the evidence. Okay, so in the diagnostic world, disruptive and antisocial behavior is called oppositional defiant disorder and conduct disorders. These are the current definitions, which are similar in DSM-5. Blaming other people, being non-compliant and difficult, not refusing to do what they're asked, argument, and sometimes deliberately annoying other people. They can be quite irritable, they're angry, they can go off on one quite easily and be touchy and easily annoyed. And the eighth one, you have to have 4 of these, is that they're vindictive and spiteful, and the criterion is often. Notice, by the way, that aggression and destructiveness is not there, even though we do see this often. So aggression, of course, can be useful. This is adverts for a salesman should be aggressive. They break the boundaries. Modern internet technology is considered wonderfully disruptive. There's something about getting out there, breaking current boundaries, and also, of course, defending yourself. It's good to be aggressive. You shouldn't lie down if a lion comes into the room. You should either run or else hit it. It is the most common mental health disorder in the NHS digital survey. 7% of boys across the age span. Girls outnumber in anxiety and depression, mood disorders once they get into teenage, but it is super common. It has got a bigger social gradient than some other disorders, 4 times at least commoner in the most lowest quintile of income. So in England, I don't know how it is in Ireland, it is a Cinderella service. Nobody wants to see it. Most where I work in the Maudsley, which is a big mental health trust across 4 London boroughs, so about a total population of 1 million, they won't see them. If you've got ADHD, you get on a long waiting list, or autism, but plain disruptive behavior, not time or space to see them, more preoccupied with psychosis, deliberate self-harm, anorexia, and indeed autism. So I see a lot of kids, he's a lovely boy, he's just going through a phase, he'll grow out of it, and he won't become this boy most of the time. That's a Dutch football club, by the way. And we hope they'll grow up into nice hug-a-hoodie David Cameron people and not become this, which was one of the London riots in Tottenham 10 years ago. Actually, I'm going to go back and ask you what you think. If you've got somebody who's difficult, one of the most 5 or 10% disruptive in a class, age 7, what the outcomes are age 25. I have an auction with people I teach and say, well, what do you think the increased risk is of things you wouldn't like to be, or if you wouldn't like your partner to be, if you're a female or whatever, or gay man. So I mean by that, domestic violence, serious drug misuse, criminality, not getting any school examinations, and being on state benefits. I can get people up to 200 or 300%. Actually, it's 500 to 800%. This is a New Zealand study, not the middle of Chicago. This is in the green South Island, so it's relatively not high-risk area. Violent offending, 35% versus 3% of the better half of the class. Drug use, 4 times more common. Teenage parent, 5 times more common. These are terrible outcomes if they're untreated. These is a pattern longitudinally. Most of us in the room are in that bottom blue line, low antisocial behavior throughout our lifespan. Some people, the green one, go up in adolescence, fall into the bad crowd, but gradually get better. The ones we're worried about are the top line. Difficult to distinguish age 5 which ones will remit, which is the red line, seems to be about family history. So we're worried about these ones in my field, early onset life course persistent. They often have lower IQ, hyperactivity, and an irritable temperament, and this interacts with poverty and poor parenting. Expensive, about £250,000. This is back in over 15 years ago plus. So there's an economic case that is across criminality, special education, not contributing to society. Also, it presages other disorders. It's a slightly complicated slide. This is the age 26, a followed back study, what the proportion who had these diagnoses age 11 to 15. So those who are doing drugs are a high risk of increased substance use disorders, the bottom, the grey bar versus the white bar. Whereas if they had anxiety at the top one, it doesn't really make much difference. Even eating disorders, I was a bit surprised at this, that increases the risk 2.5 times, and anxiety doesn't increase it much. So it's a general indicator of things not going right. And this is other health outcome which isn't very good for your health: dying. A 7-fold risk to die by the age of 57 if you have ODD or CD as a child. Well, what causes it? Within the child, irritable, callous unemotional traits, lower IQ, ADHD, autism, and low, what I call, a developmental psychologist calls it deviational anxiety. They're not so worried if they're in trouble. They don't seem to have a big conscience. Poor neighborhood, media effects, which we can talk about later if you want, imitating Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, these games which are pretty violent. And harsh and inconsistent parents who are low involved and set poor limits. The child doesn't particularly feel attached to home and often to school. So certainly where I live in a big city, they get kudos falling in with a bad crowd, saying they've gone and nicked up, dodged bus fares to begin with. Then they'll be asked, they'll be spotted by a gang person, age 10, 11, oh, could you carry these drugs? Put them through the letterbox down the road. I'll give you a couple of pounds to do that. Or euros if they're in Dublin or Ireland, and they get on the path of getting their self-esteem from being a bad guy. This is the most complicated slide of my talk. This is showing that there's an interaction of genes and environment. I couldn't believe this when I started off studying. I did a psychology degree first. This is an unusual study. Genetic risk was indexed by having not a higher risk by having an alcoholic or criminal parent. The lower genetic risk in the left-hand side didn't have alcoholic or criminal parents, but this is an adoption study where they used the same metric for the adopters. Were the adopters criminal or alcoholic? Now, I might think a social worker shouldn't be giving kids to criminal or alcoholic parents, but they hid it, and they were. And this outcome on the y-axis is who are known to the police by 17. So, good genes, good environment, 3%. Good gene, less good environment, yeah, that goes up to 7%, doubles. So much, so good. Higher genetic risk and still a good environment on this measure, 12%. So I was a bit surprised when I started off thinking genes came into it. But I'd like to draw your attention to that last wabam blue column, that if you've got this rather irritable temperament, spot of ADHD, and then you're brought up more harshly, 40% known to the police. And certainly in my clinical practice, these will be the kind of kids who come to your attention, who have both factors. However, to be optimistic, that means if we can give them a more favorable environment, if we can get from the big blue bar on the right to the lower green bar on the right, we've got more chance of doing more good than if we're in the left-hand two bars. So there is actually cause for optimism here. What subtypes are there of antisocial behavior? Common or garden oppositional, who are more likely to have the outcomes I've shown you. Irritable, these kids are quick to flare up, they're touchy, but when they calm down, they say, oh, I'm sorry. they're more likely to have a mood disorder when they sort of anxiety and depression, even bipolar as adults. And finally, the nasty kids, the callous, unemotional ones who are sort of proto-psychopaths. They understand social situations, unlike people with autism, but they don't care. They're more likely to become antisocial personality disorders or prime ministers of Britain. No, I didn't say that, Boris. These can be charming, they can make friends, but over time their friends don't like them. They realize they're superficial. If you put them in a scanner and give them various tests, they're much less sensitive to punishment, but do like rewards. So we'll come on to how we should manage them. They have a poor prognosis. And isn't this interesting? Their heritability is 80%. So environment doesn't make much difference. You can have quite a pleasant upbringing, but if the genes have been reshuffled in a way that make you like this, there's not much you can do about it. Whereas it's only 30% in regular antisocial behavior without callous emotional behaviors traits. So that is the amygdala, which are hypoactive in kids with callous unemotional traits. So they do have brain differences, these kids. Okay, so the immediate environment for a child is the parenting, and that can have a lot of effects. It can affect your behavior and emotion. You can learn bad habits, fewer social skills, become more irritable if you're not comforted by your parents. You're more likely to have higher cortisol and irritability, and you don't learn as well. Your attachment is more likely to be insecure if they're not a wonderful, comforting parent to go to and soothe you and calm you down. You have to learn to be on your own, and that has consequences. Increasing interest in bad eating habits, ultra-processed foods, are more likely to smoke, take drugs, low exercise, all of which affect general health outcomes. And we now know more recently that poorer parenting, if that's the word, less felicitous parenting, affects the brain with your stress hormones and raised inflammation. There's a chap called Michael Meaney, who is a little meanie with baby rats who'd taken them away from their mummies for 3 hours a day and put them back, and then the mummy was more rejecting of them. He then gave them an eye puff, and their cortisol level was 6 times higher, having been relatively rejected by their mothers. However, in humans who have had an abusive background, if they then get fostered well, their treatment over 6 months will normalize their cortisol secretion rate. Again, if you've had harsher parenting, your C-reactive protein, which is a general inflammatory marker, is up. They have smaller bits of their brain hippocampi, and it's looking as though there are epigenetic effects on the way their genes are affected by a poor environment, methylation, more relevant than acetylation, I think. So I find when I talk to politicians, if I say this is, antisocial behavior is bad parenting can, if it's not stopped, can lead to this. They say, yeah. And then I said, but it affects their brains. They say, oh, that's serious then, which is curious, isn't it? To me, it's curious. I'd rather have a bad brain and be happy than a good brain and have all this stuff. Sensitive responding is a key bit of child development and learning them even from baby motherese or go and talk. And if it's carried on, it'll lead to more secure attachment, better attainment, and better adjustment, and will lead to larger prefrontal cortex. These are associational, not interventional studies. It needs to be said, but you control for a lot of factors. I'm convinced by it. Okay, what can we do about it? So many modes of therapies which are current in England, the more evidence-based ones. There is a big vogue for things like polyvagal therapy and who knows what therapy, horse therapy, dog stroking therapy. But many of them start with your head up here. They change your beliefs and expect that that should then lead to resolution and behavioral change. That is, psychodynamic and non-psychodynamic psychotherapy works that way. And many family therapies expect, in my field, the parents to reattribute. I had a leading American family therapist over, and he gave the example, when the kid says, "Stop fucking smoking, Dad," instead of thinking he's a nasty little one. So, oh, he really wants to save your life and for you to be around for a long time, and that might lead to change because you reattribute. But they do require understanding, and maybe more crucially, the ability to then, once you understand it, to change your behavior without getting support for practice or rehearsal, or overcoming the many barriers that might be present in busy lives. Now, I understand I should have a better diet and exercise more, but do I always do it? Not always. CBT does include both elements, both the understanding and then supports practical homework. But the in-the-head talking therapists don't take much account of the immediate environment, the antecedents of a behavior, or the unconscious motivations or processes. And they're not very applicable for clients who have limited reasoning or limited verbal abilities. And in my field, the current intervention is towards gentle parenting, there's a BBC UK presenter called Kate Silverton, who's quite famous, who says, "Oh, bringing up children is the hardest thing I've done, even though my husband was a special services paratrooper." And she says there's no such thing as naughty. If your child's kicking off on one, you stroke your chin, you stop and say, "Oh, I think you're very angry now. Let's have a talk about it." I'm all for talking to children, but actually in the heat of the moment, I think years of experience would tell me this doesn't make much difference. By all means, have it afterwards and set limits. You'll hear me say that I think what children need is love and calm limits. What about behavioural theories? The started with social learning theory, Albert Bandura, and then Skinner, rather than classic conditioning, which is all about what happens before, Pavlovian stuff. You ring the bell and you pair it with the meat and the dog salivates. This is what happens afterwards. And this was carried on by a guy called Jerry Patterson, who died 10 years ago in Oregon, called coercive family process. What I like about this is that much of what we do is learned, so bad habits can be replaced by new learned habits. And they're based on strengths, generally speaking. So modeling comes part of that. Monkey see, monkey do. This is relevant for me. When my son was about 4 years old, I was driving him, maybe 6, to football, and a car on Saturday morning cut across us. And he said, entirely intonating like my good wife, "That man's got a small willy." So I think he probably heard it at home. So the concepts are: reinforcement will increase the probability, punishment decreases it, and you can extinction. You know this stuff. So reiterating what you know, adding something positive is a reward and should lead to increased probability of it happening again. If you remove something, take away their special playtime, their screens, that'll be a consequence. Whereas if you talk nastily to them, or in the old days hit them, that will be punishment. Giving something aversive, but taking away something that's aversive is negative reinforcement, which I want to talk a bit more about in a minute. So I'm now going to show you a slide, a short video clip of a mother with her child. A child I don't think understands the game of noughts and crosses quite. I'd like you to watch her behavior and see how much instructions or commands versus praise, what you think the ratio is. Alan can come in on that after he's seen this to give his thoughts, and what the child's behavior is. Right, is this working, Alan?
In this case, it's not so much the
Seems to be, yeah.
problem, and the ideas are simply too advanced for the child's age.
Take all the pieces out, Darren. Take all the pieces out, like this, and put them all over here on this side. Thanks.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Start again.
It's quite quick, but
In this case, it's not so much the papers are simply too advanced for the child's age.
Okay.
Take all the pieces out, Darren. Take all the pieces out like this, and put them all over here on this side. That's it. All the pieces out. Let's play this game. Okay? No, let's not put them over our ears. They're not for putting over our ears, they're for a game. Let's take all the pieces out. Okay? You've got a few more to take. Fine. Now, can we put this box over there? We don't want that in our way. Right here. Put it right there. There.
Here, the parent has a specific idea about the right way to play noughts and crosses, but the child is still exploring. What do you think will happen?
Now, dear, let's put the box away. We're going to learn how to play noughts and crosses. Look, noughts and crosses is right here. Right here. Look. Do you want the crosses or the noughts? No. You want to be the noughts. Okay. Okay, now look, it's my turn next time. It's my turn. When you put a nought in there, look, Mummy gets to put a cross in just here. Okay, a cross right here. Now you put a nought in, Darren. Try to put it in so it makes either a straight line this way. No, wait, it's my turn. Now look, I'm going to put a cross in there so you can't make a straight line. Can you see another place to put a nought in? So it makes a straight line of noughts? No, these are my crosses. You can't have these. Put a nought in. No, these are crosses. These are Mummy's. No, these are mine. You can't have these. You can't have these. Here's a nought for you. If you put it in here, that will start making a straight line. Come on, I want to teach you how to play this game. Look, I'll put the nought in for you. Darren, come back. I'm playing with this boy. Okay?
Wow. What was I supposed to be watching out for again?
Of commands or, stops and no's versus praise or encouragement.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt for the little boy there. A lot of what he was doing, I didn't feel wasn't seen or acknowledged, reinforced, we might say, to keep him with the task. So, responses that he made that were in line with, what she wanted them to do weren't really reinforced at a high rate, if you know what I mean.
I agree. So I don't know what, there might have been 10 commands for every praise or acknowledgement.
Exactly.
So that was her behavior. Did he stay on task or did he wander off? I would say he started wandering off and almost having a little fight with her.
Yeah.
He first of all appealed to her, but it didn't work. So, of course, if he were a strapping 12-year-old, it could be rather different. So my checklist would be, what did she do behaviorally? What did he do? What might he be learning if this is most of his life? Something like, nothing I can do can please my mummy. What might she be feeling? Ungrateful little thing. I've got this special 10 minutes playtime. And of course, the last bit, if I've got a group of parents, is what could you do different? Does it matter if he puts a thing over his earring, a ring over his ear? One mother made a rather sexist comment, he's going to become gay if you let him do that. But mostly that we try and teach them plays for exploration. So now let me show you the same mother, another task the boy doesn't quite understand. So she is a stooge there, but now she will give more encouragement. So look at the number of praises she gives and look at his behavior on task.
Okay.
Oh, hang on, where have I got to?
Okay, it takes time.
Yeah, here we go.
Sometimes, if the toy or task is too advanced for the age level of the child, the experience can be very frustrating. In the next few scenes, watch what the parents do to anticipate and to avoid frustration and still help their children learn to problem solve.
Okay. Oh, now that's a tough one. You're doing a good job. Now, how about this? Let's find another 2 more pegs. Look down here. See if it fits here, Darren. See if it fits in there. How can you make that fit? Turn it around and around. Good job. Try again, it will fit. Just try it again. Makes red on your fingers, doesn't it? Good for you. That was a hard one. Try that one on this one. It has 4 holes. In here, 4 pegs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that's a hard one because this one has 3 holes. It goes right here. Good. Count the holes. You don't want to count the holes? Okay. Did we drop any on the floor? Yeah. Oh, can you get them? Oh. How many holes does that one have? Look at the holes. It only has 1, doesn't it? Can you see 1 peg all by itself? Can you see 1 peg all by itself, Darren? Look, I think it goes on this one. There. Nice job. That one has 4 holes. Almost. Try 1 more. 1 more down. Try this one, Darren. That's not easy, is it? There. Last one. Try that one. Turn it around. Turn it around. And around some more. We can't make holes where there aren't any. Turn it around some more. It needs to go around 1 more time. You just keep trying, don't you?
Any thoughts, Alan?
Yeah, it's very nice. You know, I mean, I suppose like some of the things I picked up on there was, you know, there's a little bit of errorless learning there, which is very effective technique. So she tells him what to do, then he does it, and then, you know, it's able to get praised then for the outcome. Also, one of the things I noticed is that for persisting, the little boy is being praised for persisting even though it's difficult. Oh, that's
she said you just keep on trying, didn't she? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very nice. And also as well, obviously you can see through it's kind of the embedded nature of reinforcement. Oftentimes I talk to people and they think that reinforcement is something that comes at the end once you do this and then it happens, whereas it is embedded moment by moment in the flow of an interaction rather than a big thing at the end, you know. So it illustrates that very nicely.
And so this is the same mother and the same kids, you know, 5 minutes later. So it's interesting showing what a difference your immediate antecedents and rewards can make. And she also connects with his mental state by which, she said, oh, look, it makes red on your fingers, doesn't it? So she's, if you like, validating his experience. Okay, so that for me helps show parents who I show this to the power of encouragement and praise. And I would say for the most difficult kids, 80% of the improvement I get is through increasing positive behavior. Well done for sitting down nicely, concentrating, you're eating your peas very nicely, all that stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Which you might not see if you just see the difficult behavior. So getting their eye in, that's why I find videotapes are useful. All right, so that's something about the power of encouragement. And of course, kids are keen, you know, I guess back in when we're all living in the jungles, you need to stay close to your parents. You need their attention, so you crave it. So here is something about negative reinforcement. I give Alan a command and say, Alan, I want you to do the washing up. He screams, no, I don't want to. There's something really good on telly. I get more angry. Alan, I want you to do the washing up. Oh, no, I got to go and watch the game.
Yeah.
Then if Alan complies, I've learned that by raising my voice and shouting at him, this works. Whereas if I give in the child is then learning that by screaming up, he will have negative reinforcement. He gets rid of the aversive shouting of the parent by just screaming some more. So each of them is being rewarded for bad behavior. And this often happens in escalated dyadic interactions.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that can be the process. So is this a good candidate for early intervention? Emotional problems, can you identify them before 7? Not really. You can't identify who's going to become a depressive young. Does it have an unremitting course? No, it goes up and down. High impairment, a lot of kids with anxiety and depression can still have friends and go to school. High cost, not so much. Is there a long-lasting effective treatment? No, it's short-term CBT or maybe antidepressant. But you can do late intervention when they've got it. Autism, you can identify, it does have an unremitting course, it does have high impairment, it has a high cost to society, but there's no treatment of the core symptoms. You can help. And there's no late treatment. Well, I want to argue that behavioral problems we can get in early, does have an unremitting course, does have high impairment, costs a lot. But if we get in, I'm going to argue in under 11, we can have long-lasting effective treatment. And I would say once they're in adolescence or adulthood, it's very difficult to change. It's become baked into their character. So I chaired something in England, this thing called NICE, National Institute for Now Healthcare and Clinical Excellence. They wanted something in conduct disorder. I said most teachers and social workers don't know the term. Let's call it antisocial behavior. Had to go up the top committee. Okay. I got the Social Worker Institute for Excellence on board, and I got the British Psychological Society on board. I thought, whoa, we're really going to change things by having this report. They'll all take it back to their members and we'll implement some evidence-based practice. How wrong I was, Alan. What a naive, relatively young compared with now person I was. So there are about 400 RCTs now of parent training or parenting programs. Start off in a group because it's a bit cheaper, but then give individually, which I do in my clinic. Child anger management can help. It's not so much used, actually, interestingly, in the UK and in the States. I visit university centres, and then you go 2 miles away from the university, no one's doing it. In adolescence, there are some American things, multisystemic theory, functional family therapy. They work in the program developers trial in the USA. They're often making money from it. Outside that in Europe, often don't work, which I'll come back to. So a bit of a health warning from me about that.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the first trial I did with 141 kids referred to our child and adolescent mental health services, quite severe persistent antisocial behavior. When you added in their ADHD, which quite a lot had, it was in the worst 1%. We gave them a video group, 3 weeks of play, 3 weeks of praise and rewards, then how to limit and handling misbehavior. Control group in the background, 6 months later, still nearly 2 standard deviations above the mean, whereas the intervention group came down pretty nicely, more than 1 standard deviation. I was worried they would still be bad a year later because things might have gone pear-shaped at home, but they didn't. The parents had learned these skills and they were still keeping the kid in a happier state.
Mm-hmm.
We've just done a scanning study, not yet published, on whether this could change grey matter around the amygdala, which I showed before. And actually, the more the parents implemented the factors in the parenting trains, it changed these things. So again, not only is the brain implicated in causal, but you can change it, which I find kind of optimistic. We then followed up that sample in their teenage years, compared with what they were normally getting in a CAMH service. And yeah, half of the controls had oppositional defiant disorder, whereas only a quarter of the ones who got our treatment were. So we're showing long-term lasting effects here, 8 to 10 years later. Their callous unemotional traits, or something called the antisocial personality screening device, were reduced. So that was helpful. And the youths themselves say, I'm not arguing with my parents so much, I'm doing my homework and so on. So that was all very encouraging. Now, I've seen yogurt adverts where you drink this stuff and flowers open up in your stomach. You become this lovely whole person inside. And I thought that would be happening from my treatment of these kids. They'd be lovely across contexts because they're changed people. Oh, by the way, their reading scores went up quite a bit. 10 points, that's a lot. That's, 15 is the standard deviation. That surprised me. Because they got into the habit of reading even during the holidays when they might lose their skills. This is not a staged picture, it was a natural one, I'm pleased to say. What about school? I was hoping, as I was saying, that they would change their behavior in school. The youth themselves said, I'm not any different at school. I still nick someone else's ruler or stapler, make funny noises in the back of the class, and so on. Teachers didn't spot any difference. Admittedly, that was a strength and difficulties questionnaire, a fairly crude measure, but nonetheless, I was a bit disappointed by that. So, what about using the same behavioural techniques in schools? If you can use the same ones of encouraging the good and calm limits for the best. I did a trial in 24 schools in Jamaica where we did direct observations that are really good of the worst 3 kids in a class, and we got a good effect size on oppositional defiance and on more positive improving their peer relationship skills. Recently, we measured everybody in 80 schools using, again, similar methods. Just got a small effect size, 0.13. Last of all, I've just recently finished restorative justice in 40 secondary schools. Big numbers, over 6,000. It was aimed at bullying and it did improve bullying. This is in the whole sample, not just the bullies, but it didn't affect aggression, but it wasn't aiming at that. So I think we can do things in schools. By the way, there's a thing called the good behavior game where you divide, I've seen this work, a primary school class that would be 30 kids in England into 3 groups of 10. You say, oh, whoever behaves best can get out of the lesson 5 minutes early and can get the first helping of pizza at lunchtime. So then you're using peer pressure. The other kids, if they see one making a noise, they say, shush. So you're using them to control each other, not just the teacher. And there's some good trial evidence on that. So then I wanted to go from clinical to prevention at a population level. I found that going into schools and saying, hi, my name is Dr. Scott, your child's a dead ringer to become a drug dealer. Yeah, not very engaging. So here we went into reception in year 1, 5 and 6-year-olds in 8 primary schools, screened them and took the worst. This is in Lambeth and Poor in the London area, the worst, 20% on the screening device nationally, but 40% here. And we said, do you know what the teachers are doing? Do you want your child to achieve what will teach you how to read with them and improve their reading skills? So here is an example of a group in a school. You notice not very good at getting the dads to come in, slightly better now, not a lot. This mother, who's the one on the right in yellow, has 2 twins, Nathan and Nathaniel. One is a joy, one has been nicking stuff at the age of 6 from shops. I mean, they do put all the sweets just by the cash till. It's kind of tempting, I must agree with this kid. And this is about a reward chart. What would you like to reward? Everything? No, let's just choose one thing. Well, she has a cream carpet and he comes in his muddy trainers. She calls them sneakers. Okay, let's make a reward chart. You've got to hang up your sneakers. And if you do it 3 days out of 7, and we're not going for perfection, you can have a no-cost reward, we suggested, like go to bed half an hour later, choose yogurt. She said, no, I want to take them to McDonald's. We thought, oh, okay, if you want to. So that was her homework, and this is her feeding back the next week.
I will just look. How is Nathan in his class? Nathan is a joy. And Nathaniel is.
It's actually going to explode every time you go to these baby minutes. Oh, that's when they get together. Yeah.
When Nathan and the family get together, taking up to the sneakers or the trainers. Oh, the child, yeah. He done one. Yeah. Then you go to but he did it. Excellent. He's done it, and he goes, I know what I was thinking, so. I want so much smiley face. Excellent. Smiley face. Big smile. And I think, oh, I said to it. You know, from McDonald's, now this is really one more stuff. And they had their McDonald's yesterday. So he accepted one more time. Well, listen, this is a miracle. She actually achieved something for a week. Now, do you understand why we said one day? It's not even just the sleeping. When he put the trainers away, he also hung up his clothes. Yes, I don't run and run.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Wow. You know, it's nice to see her so enthusiastic about it, you know, and rightly so as well. There's every reason.
Yeah, it's not always like that, is it? But I'd like to point out, I mean, she scares me, this mother. She's quite scary. And she was hitting him. She admitted that. But she said, I praise him, I hug him. And when he said, I don't want your stinking stars, she would have whacked him before, but she was flexible. She said, okay, you can draw a smiley face. So she really did move. And so at the beginning, I talked about different models of therapy. Here we go in and do and practice, then the perception, the cognition changes. She now sees this as a different boy. And by the way, we see a bit of generalization, don't we? Focus on one thing, but then it generalized to some other behaviors.
Yeah, and that's just something that struck me earlier on when you spoke about the parent shouts, the child shouts, and then the negative reinforcement. Those kind of vicious circles, they're also contrasted with virtuous circles as well, exactly. Though. Yeah. When things start to work, they can have a beneficial effect on both, and then things start to blossom, like your probiotics.
Yep. Okay. I've made flowers grow in my stomach. I'll carry on because I know we're getting a bit out of time here. If we go over 5 minutes, that would be great. We started a bit late.
We did start a bit late, yeah.
So here is something to show you. Time out, which is quite controversial amongst some people. I think it's very helpful. I think I've shown in trials that we reduce the amount of negative talk from parents to children and expressed emotion by using these calm methods. This is a boy who is ruling the roost at home, absolutely trashing home. And here you can see he's trashed my clinic. For some reason, it's gone into black and white. I apologize that it was in color. It was not 75 years ago. And I will start giving the dad some instruction. He's rather ineffectual, but you will see he'll be put on a timeout chair. So he will scream. So just to warn you that.
Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take your shoes off so that if you hit me, then you'll know how hard this is. Okay? I'm not having it.
I don't want to kick it. I will not.
Do you say you're going to stop kicking it?
Let's slowly throw the ball around.
Taking longer because you won't help me. In fact, John said even not because you're pulling it out while I'm putting it
down. It's trashed my clinic, you can see.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go on that cushion, please? Because I'm going to put one down there. Oh, no, that was blue chair. Do you remember? I said. Lawrence, I'm giving you one more chance on it. Now, I don't put the shoes on.
Here is a younger me encouraging mum to just hang on in there.
Right.
He's got to be quiet for 1 minute.
Okay.
Getting to his eye level, a clear instruction.
Mm-hmm.
Hold his hand, take him over to clean up the cushion. Now we're encouraging their parents' positive behaviour.
Well, if you see anyone, anybody's not talking enough, I'll let me know. Oh, this is some other cool things. What's cool things? No, need to kind of like teenage.
So I've got a bug in Dad's ear and coaching him what to say.
Right.
You got my nose. You didn't get my nose. You got my nose. Good stuff. I love you too.
All right. Very nice.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got my nose again.
Said to me yesterday, I was the best mum in the world.
You said to me yesterday, I'm the best mum in the world.
Switched.
He's switched.
He's not God. And I'm not God.
He's not God and I'm not God.
And he's really, there's a respect for it. It's really accepting that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we both recognise that he's come a really long way, and we've come a long way as well. In was it 2 weeks now? No, 2 weeks ago, that's 40 minutes of restraint. Yeah, and
But for me, that's I think the best way of showing him.
Sorry.
again.
I hope that wasn't too upsetting for people. You can see a very powerful effect on family life there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's for me personally, I find that the practice, well, probably do we have a question in there? But I'll go to that first. I'll go to this quickly. First, the practice of behaviour analysis in Ireland now tends to be very specific. It's away from the typical concerns of childhood. So we tend to have quite complex situations, really, and things like the good behaviour game. I find myself using the principle overall, but having to very much tailor it to specific characteristics of the child. But we have a question in: how do you respond to the rise of influencers like Kate Silverton? I'm not familiar with Kate. You may be.
I that book. I give people the evidence and say, actually, the alternative is people smacking and deriding and using moral arguments which don't work, and the children not doing well. And this is very brief. It's calm. You don't shout. As soon as at that time I said, "Oh, let's go and play now," it completely transforms the atmosphere and leads to stronger attachment. I've had arguments: "Oh, that abused children, you're re-traumatizing them." You're not. You're actually abusing them if you're letting them go to the dogs, in my view. But it is a debate. So I'm just going to finish off because I know it's past. Quickly, So this also led, this was a preventive trial that the spokes won an improvement, hyperactivity reduced, and the reading age, because we taught them how to read with their kids, went up in comparison to the controls. Notice the teachers are doing a good job, the dark green bars at the back, but helping parents support their kids in schools reading helped. Adolescents are harder. I've done a lot of my life. I did something called functional family therapy, really good measures, 111 young offenders randomized, 6 months, 18 months, direct observation. Not a blind bit of difference. With Peter Fonagy, who runs the Anna Freud Centre here in London, we randomized 684 kids to multisystemic therapy. We've just done a 5-year follow-up. Not a blind bit of difference. Disappointing.
That speaks to the importance of negative results, though, doesn't it, Stephen?
Yeah, and you've got to publish them. Yeah. So last 2 or 3 slides, I think during lockdown, we couldn't see people. The current government is disinvesting in face-to-face parenting programs, and yet they say they want social equality and leveling up. And you can have it accessible at any time. You can do it at home. You don't have to travel into a centre. If you don't get it, you can go over it again. Quite a lot of parents are shy and stigmatized by having difficult behaved kids, so they can do this in privacy. And online unsupported, it's going to be around £75, supporting, giving them a bit of support, maybe even better meeting them in person, but then ringing them once a week. This is compared with face-to-face, £1,500 to £2,000. The pound and the euro are not so different these days. Mm-hmm. So I've developed something called Parenting Matters. We do an initial assessment. They fill in 4 or 5 questionnaires about their own health and about the kids. And we teach sensitive response and disciplines. We have lots of short videos, similar to the ones I showed you. And we have a community where they can share with other parents. It's what I call love and limits. Start off with play, go into praise and then listen, how to communicate with your kid. Then go into setting limits and consequences, how to handle temper, including timeout if their parents want to do it. And then planning ahead is terribly important. And they can get it there. So this is my last slide. By all means, have a look or just Google Parenting Matters and do get in touch with me. Okay.
I'll make sure those links are hosted on the website.
Thank you. Now, shall I stop sharing now, Alan? Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah. Yes, please. So listen, thanks very much, Stephen. It's probably important to say as well that what would you say to a parent who is struggling now and looking for support? Like, I mean, there's parenting interventions there that are available. The Parenting Matters is there. So what do they need to look out for when seeking support, I suppose, is my question.
Well, I think like anything else, go on the internet and find what's available. I mean, there's a huge lack of availability in the UK. And make your own mind up and start maybe talking to the people who are offering this intervention and talk to other parents who, if they can find any who've done it. I think, we're past the time of the professor wags his finger and says, you've got to do this. The parents are going to find out for themselves, particularly with the internet.
Yeah.
So I would encourage them to go for something that works. I think it's quite immoral what is around. There's a charity called Family Matters in Oxford, which sent me a Christmas card saying they've trained 6,000 people in their intervention. And they've done an RCT, a rather large one, and it shows no outcome improvement on 15 different outcomes. So then they did a per protocol analysis because about a quarter of people left. No improvement at all. They're encouraging parents to get it off their chest and express themselves emotionally. I think that's immoral, Alan. Can you imagine if you take a child into casualty with appendicitis and they say, well, there's this operation that works in 90% of cases. And let's try putting some herbs in there and see what happens. I mean, you're messing with kids' lives, in my view.
Yeah, your work has been very strong on the importance of the evidence base, and that's what you share. I suppose that's what you share with our behavioral analytic community. And then this may be a big question for our last few moments, but you alluded to, and you talk about some of the obstacles to getting the evidence base accepted. What are your thoughts on why that is the case, or could you give us any guidance, Stephen?
Well, my first thought is, well, rubbish. I remember as a doctor in training, I was whinging about this kind of thing. And they said, okay, do you know the name of your local commissioner? Have you been to talk to them?
Right.
Silence, me in silence. So we need to get our message out. I think we're rubbish at getting our message out there. I talk to people that socially in their cell, you know, child mental health, psychiatry, behavioural stuff. You have a chat with people, don't you, and give them a bit of counselling. The fact that we've got loads of evidence and brain scans, they go online to buy a washing machine or a car. You know, where is the magazine? What parenting program, as opposed to, you know, which hot rod racer with a 5-litre engine or whatever else? We need, I think we're rubbish at getting out there and putting a message out, I think, for myself.
Yes. And of course, you know, your own organization, the association, was not your organization, you were the chair or president, rather, the Association for Child and Adolescent Mental Health. That's a good place. That's a
Yeah, but we're talking to the converted. It's mainly for professionals. Well, I'm just trying to take it in to be more directly for parents, actually, and teachers. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks very much. Before we go, just to mention that our next event is going to be with Aoife Ryan, who's PhD candidate in Galway, and she's going to be looking at talking about her work, which is the Living My Life project, which is an interdisciplinary approach to independent living, and she's going to be presenting along with colleagues from social work and occupational therapy. So that's on Thursday, June 20th, again at 7:30, and you know, we'll get details and booking online as we did for this. So thanks very much. I really appreciate your time, Stephen. It was a real pleasure.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to present. Yeah, sorry I couldn't see you in a room and talk a bit more, but there we are. Yeah,
no problem. Okay,
someone's raised a hand. I don't know what.
Raised a hand. Open queue. Do you want to? It seems to be coming up and down. I don't have a Kate, is it, or K?
When it's the top right, it's
oh, that's just a hello and a thumbs up. Thanks very much, Kay. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Bye,
Thanks for your time.
yeah. Bye. Okay.